Happy Monday, everyone. Infamous is one of my favorite game series, up there with the Arkham games and the Spider-Man games, and despite Infamous Second Son being a bit of a black sheep, it still has plenty of fun details and facts to make repeat playthroughs more interesting. So, here are a bunch of things you might not have known about Second Son, and just a heads up that I won't be covering karma differences here, because I already made a video on that and I don't want to waste time for the people who already saw it. Okay? Let's get into it. The earliest game over you can get is by missing the Longhouse during the beginning of the game. If running past the Longhouse, you'll see this unique game over message, and Delsin even has dialogue if you miss it.
I think I overshot the Longhouse there. Gotta get inside before the party's over.
It's pretty well known that Second Son has a short story and feels generally a bit underdeveloped. The story felt a bit short, and some of the power sets, especially Concrete, didn't even get a karmic streak ability, and while it's no excuse, there is a reason. Infamous Second Son was supposed to be what people in the industry call a second wave release. The Order 1886 was meant to be a first wave release, or otherwise known as a launch title, but had to be delayed, causing Second Son to be promoted to launch title. Because of this, Sucker Punch lost a year of development, and when viewing the game through this lens, it makes a lot of sense. Reggie, in his final words, has no difference regardless of your karmic state, and maybe it's just me, but it feels like the game wraps up far too fast, especially when we consider how much time is spent with Fetch, a part of the game that was likely the most developed due to it being early on. A big part of Delsin's character in Second Son is his Akomish identity. The game begins on an Akomish reservation, something many indigenous communities were led to in efforts to concede land to colonizers. While the Akomish were not a real tribe, the Duwamish are, and have histories that are strikingly similar to the Akomish. The Duwamish had also conceded land to the American government in exchange for reservations, and the most prominent leader of both this tribe and the Squamish tribe was Chief Seattle, in which the city is named after. I think given the political themes of Second Son, specifically in the way the government treats conduits, it's tasteful for them to include some history about the real-life location, especially given the real-life parallels. According to a calendar in Betty's factory, the game begins on October 12th, assumedly in 2013. The opening of the game showcases Delsin's movement without powers, and did you know that, because his conduit gene hasn't been activated, his jump is noticeably shorter than it is once he gets his powers? A criticism I've often heard about the story of Infamous Second Son is that Augustine was able to occupy Seattle too quickly. I get it, she does show up and basically terraform the city with DUP towers and propaganda in an absurd amount of time, but I think this might actually be a clever means of foreshadowing. It's revealed in an evil run that Augustine has actually staged the breakout we see at the beginning of the game.
I needed Abigail and Eugene to be monsters, because without monsters, the monster hunters go out of business.
And that's why in all those flashbacks, we could see Augustine training the different conduits. I think with this in mind, there's a good chance that Augustine was able to begin pulling strings before the breakout, preparing her forces so that when it happened, she could react instantly. We see this too when Delsin is told that he's been knocked out for 1 week.
How long did you say I was out for?
1 week.
Wow. That means the DUP put all of this up to...
Yep.
Oh, they've kept busy.
And yet, we are later told that Augustine was able to do everything we see in 2 weeks.
As the DUP lockdown of Seattle enters its second week now, there is still no sign of any progress.
This means that she was able to start occupying Seattle at least a week before the prison break. Is this a plot hole, or is this a clever means of foreshadowing? Personally, I'd say the latter. While the game never outright states it, the neutral rank in the game is referred to as Vandal in the game's files. This makes Second Son the only game to have a neutral rank, as indicated by Delsin's vest. Once we wake up after getting taken out by Augustine, we can find a series of photos on the wall. These seem like little kid drawings, and we can also see photos of people and kids. I assume that these photos are from the Sucker Punch team and their families, as is typically the case for Easter eggs like this. However, I did notice that one of the hospital beds has the same photo of Delsin that Betty has. Could this have been left over from Delsin's parents, who are presumably dead, or is this just a reused asset? We can also find a few books here with the title of Thievius Raccoonus, a clear reference to Sly Cooper, Sucker Punch's previous series. And there are pictures of Sly Cooper on the wall too. These Thievius Raccoonus books are all over the game, and we can even see some in Fetch's billboard hideout later on. We can also find a drawing of an evil Cole taking down some Reapers, and a little Knack doll. Aww. So this is a bit of a lame inconsistency to point out, but something funny about Delson's powers is that he doesn't get the ability to shoot smoke until he and Reggie encounter a core relay on their way to Seattle. Despite this, in 2 instances, people refer to Delson as shooting smoke out of his fingertips.
Just happen to have smoke coming out of your fingers.
Smoke coming out of my fingers.
Shooting smoke out of your fingertips isn't exactly normal, man.
Despite this, Delson doesn't shoot anything, and the closest he does is utilize his smoke powers to help push the car off of Reggie, but that is clearly originating from his upper arms, not his hands or fingertips. It really doesn't matter, but I thought it was a funny detail. Around Seattle, you will encounter DUP vans that will shoot you on sight, or that's what I thought for a while. If you want to avoid them, just don't use your powers, and they won't recognize you. An interesting glitch you could say with these is that they won't shoot you unless you initiate a new move in front of them. So if you are using the neon or concrete endless sprint and start the sprint while outside their vision, you can run right by them and they won't care. But if you stop to initiate any other conduit-like action, they will attack. The blast shards in this game function like previous games, however, instead of just collecting them, Delson fully absorbs their power, and when doing so, it will actually recharge some of your energy for whatever power you are using. Convenient. During the midway point of the game, Augustine wants you to show her your new powers, and does this by throwing a hard enemy at you and only leaving neon signs in the arena. This will force you to use neon and thus expose your new power. But what if you don't use neon at all? It takes a bit of elbow grease, but if only using your limited smoke abilities, Augustine and Delson will have some minor dialogue about it, but the cutscene after that point will not change, and Delson will act as though he's been caught.
Well, the bigger they are, the smaller I feel.
Oh, and I'd heard such glowing reports about you.
Infamous Second Son's first teaser trailer is so cool, and features Delson with a bit of a different design. His bird was white and black instead of red and blue, and he wore Converse instead of the Adidas adjacent shoes in the release. Also, some of the shots from this trailer are near beat for beat recreated when taking down the Space Needle. There are a ton of Easter eggs on the billboards and signs in this game, and while I can't go through all of them, here are some of my favorites. There is a sign for an Empire City musical. Cole Magee's Electronics makes an appearance all over town, but most notably, it's where Eugene hides out in the Lantern District. Burger Royale is featured here too, which is the name of a diner from Pulp Fiction. And finally, there are a few billboards for Phoenix Jones, who is actually a real-life vigilante who patrolled the streets of Seattle fighting crime. Though he was eventually arrested for trying to sell ecstasy to an undercover cop, so I guess he wanted to see what an evil run looked like. During the first fight against Augustine, Delson acts a bit different, looking like he's crying while performing an orbital drop, dropping in with one fist, and his idle animation sees him with his fists clenched and a more aggressive combat stance. The game foreshadows Hank's betrayal plenty, such as his neck having a tattoo with a striking resemblance to that of Delson's infamous rank logo, and with his smoke being a darker, more napalm-like hue, similar to how our smoke would look if we were infamous. But the real kicker is that even when working with Hank, our reticle still changes to red if we aim at him, the same way it would with any other enemy, instead of being green. No matter how evil you are and thus how red your powers are, when taking down one of the DUP stations, your powers will always be in the good state. Maybe it's because stopping the DUP is a good action no matter which way you slice it. Oh, who am I kidding? It's an oversight. While there are no sequence breaks per se, there is a pretty consistent glitch you can perform if you know where you're going. When a character asks you to meet somewhere, if you beat them to that location before their dialogue is finished, like when we meet Reggie at a core relay, we can see him blip into existence before our very eyes. Other parts of the game have pretty good guardrails against sequence breaks, such as at the final ascent up Augustine's tower. We need to use video to make it to the roof, but there's an invisible wall to prevent us from using an orbital drop to get up there instead. Because if we got up there without video, then we'd softlock ourselves. When getting some new video powers, Delson will be able to chat with Eugene about it. If on a good playthrough, you get access to an awesome sword, which Eugene will comment on. This sword is absent on an evil playthrough, replaced by a claw, but Eugene still says this.
What do you say? I've got an amazing new sword. We could do some damage.
How cool is that sword, right?
It's possible this could be referring to the bloodthirsty blades, but this dialogue happens before that power is unlocked, so it's more than likely an oversight. One of the most iconic parts of Infamous 2 is that damn tearjerker of a speech from Zeke after Cole sacrifices himself. He says the following.
I love you, brother. And I'm sure gonna miss you.
Once Delsin paints the memorial piece for Reggie, he says the same thing.
I love you, brother. I'm sure gonna miss you.
When finally collecting the Platinum Trophy, Delsin will have some special dialogue for the player, specifically stating the following.
You know what, buddy? You and I have been through a lot. But I gotta tell you, officially, we're done.
With that, those are all the fun facts I have for you today. Rest assured that there are still details all over this game, and there are some great subtle differences between both good and evil playthroughs, and if you want to know what those differences are, then you can watch my video on those next. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. See you next Monday.
This town is ours, and we shall show no mercy. Yeah. What he said.